Hey guys, it's the Scranton MMA show, and this is Frank.
I'm Jess.
It's Tom.
And today we're going to talk about our expectations of a Jiu Jitsu white belt.
Yeah.
So I think if you're one of our students, you might have an idea of what we expect, but especially if you're a new student or you've never trained before, you might find some of this material useful.
Yeah, and this will be the first part of a long series where we break down different ranks for jiu-jitsu, hopefully for judo. Maybe we'll get even like some striking, the striking instructors in talking about beginner and advanced striking. But today we're mainly focusing on white belts in jiu-jitsu. So one of the biggest things I like for white belts to focus on is understanding names and terminology. So eventually your goal should be to try to get into the intermediate and advanced classes, right? So if I say, for instance, like, all right, we're going to start off in closed guard. The top person's going to do a back step pass. Bottom person, I want you to get this underhook, start hipping out. You know what I mean? You should not be confused with what's an underhook.
What's a hip escape?
Yeah, that sort of stuff. So that, like, if your goal, which it should be, your goal should be to advance into the more challenging classes as you progress, you shouldn't be confused with terminology.
Yeah.
And I think for the most part, our beginner curriculum goes over pretty much all the terminology you need to get to the intermediate class.
Yeah.
And then the intermediate class explains all the terminology to get to the advanced class, because you're starting to learn now more of the basics of more advanced open guards, like De La Hiva, X
Some
guard,
different submissions we throw in there too.
more passes, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So that way I'm not slowing down the advanced class by the time you get there, and it should be relatively smooth sailing as long as you go through that system.
Yes. And if you don't know, our white belts can take our intermediate and advanced classes. It just depends on how many stripes you have. So it is a lot of terms, but you'll learn it as you go.
And then also a little shameless plug, if you ever get confused with terms, most of our classes are on our website at scrantonmma.com, and you could go there. And if you haven't registered yet, please register. I have to approve you, so it might take a day or two. If you want to get into it quicker, just message me that you registered.
Yeah.
You know, but then you could go back and you could understand, like, what is an underhook? What is a De La Hiva hook? What is a circle pass?
Yeah.
You know, you could just type all that stuff in the search bar, and a lot of it will come up.
And even if you're not like hitting these moves perfectly in your rolls or your drills, it's still good to like recognize like what you're trying to go for. So then even later on when you're trying to ask questions, like a lot of times I get questions like, I was in this position and I was doing this, and you either have to give me the name or show me. So sometimes, like, if we're just having a quick conversation, as long as you know the names of the techniques, it's like easier for me to say, like, oh, you're trying to do like an elevator sweep. Okay, you probably need your hook in this place. Like, whereas, you know, I'll have some people like not really know the name, and they'll start setting it up and they're not really sure. So I kind of have to like guess where you were in that role. So, yeah, knowing the names is important.
Some of it's like, you think of it as a submission or position, but it's also like part of like the language that your coaches need to speak to you.
Yeah.
So even if you're not going to be a great open guard player, you got to know some of the names of them and what the positions are, just so when the coach sets up a drill or wants to help you with even the top or bottom aspect of that position, you got to learn some of the terms
And
for all this.
even if you're like, hey, I don't really like arm bars, right? You still have to know the term. You still have to get the general concept of them, you know?
Yeah.
Not just for you to do it, but to be able to defend it. And I think that's like extremely helpful, and keep an open mind when training.
Key element.
Yeah, that brings us to a really good point. Is as a white belt, you're going to be defending yourself a lot, just because you're new. There's guys out there that are going to be like way better than you, and I think just for like not everybody comes in for self defense, but I think it's important to know how to defend yourself. Just for the outside world can be a little bit crazy, and it's not bad to know how to defend yourself, even if you're not here to learn that. Like maybe you're trying to be like more of a competitor. It's still good to know how to defend yourself when you're out anywhere.
Yeah. And even with the competitors, like if you get your guard passed, that shouldn't mean that your match is
bottom
over.
the whole
you
time,
know?
yeah.
Exactly.
You should be able to regain your guard. When we talk about defense, we're not only talking about submission defense, but also positional defenses.
Yeah.
And unlike the terminology where I expect you to know what De La Riva is, but if you don't know how to really play it at an effective level, that's okay. But as a white belt, I do expect you to play defense at a somewhat effective level for your rank.
Absolutely,
So
yeah.
if let's say like a brown belt, black belt, purple belt gets you in side control, I'm not saying you have to be able to escape side control, but if a white belt gets you or blue belt gets you, I should at least be able to see the concepts that are supposed to work in motion.
Yeah.
You know? So when it comes to being able to regain your offense by hip escaping or getting out of submissions, that'll help your training in the long run too, because let's say you do want to work on a new guard, you're going to probably be really bad at it. Everything new you do, you're going to be real bad at it, just because let's say I'm good with closed guard and I want to start working X guard, doesn't mean there'll be a little like help with that transition, but I'm probably going to be terrible day one with the X guard, right? So if I'm practicing X guard in sparring and they pass my guard and I can't regain my guard to re-practice my X guard, then it's basically
All
a
you're gonna do is
wasted
practice
round.
defense anyway.
Yeah.
So you better get good at it.
Yeah.
You know?
So I think that's going to really, really help. And even too with top people, I know I always use the analogy a lot with guard, but if you're working a certain pass, right, you get swept. All right, now I don't know how to get back on top to rework that pass.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of useless.
It works out for the rest of your jiu-jitsu career, basically.
Yeah, absolutely. If you're able to, just because let's say something new isn't working right away, if you're able to rep it out, especially in a live scenario, you'll be able to go, well, if I do this, everybody passes me like this. All right, let me ask an instructor what I'm doing wrong. Or try to figure it out on your own. I would always say take the shortcut and ask the instructor, but at least you have if it's just like one time I grabbed the collar and they pass, it might not be because you grabbed the collar,
Yeah.
But if it happens
something
7-8 times in a round, then okay, it's
Something's
something.
going on
Yeah.
Yeah. I think another thing is people always say how do I get better? And it is frustrating at first to show up and get crushed every single day, and it's it happens for a while, but as long as you show up, eventually you're not going to get crushed every time.
Yeah.
And everybody goes through it. Everybody says how do I get better? I'm getting beat every time. And then eventually I have conversations with those people 2 or 3 or 6 months down the road, and they're like, yeah, I don't get crushed every time anymore.
Yeah.
And it's because you kept showing up. And I think that's one of the most important things you can do.
Can't happen without it. You
Yeah.
know? You're not going to get good without showing up.
You literally can't get good at anything without showing up and doing it.
Something
Besides
plus something
maybe
equals
sleeping.
something. Yeah.
You got to show up to sleep.
We don't have any students that have been here a while and aren't really good and getting a lot better.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? So all you have to do is keep showing up like them.
Yeah.
And we'll kind of revisit that topic too at blue belt and purple belt,
Yeah.
but just because you'll see it toward the end of the white belt, but
It's cute.
you'll definitely get it a lot in the blue belt. just because you're getting better doesn't mean there won't be your days or matches that you don't get smashed. You know, like everybody. I forgot who I was talking to yesterday. I think it was Judd, and he was just like, some days you're the hammer, other days you're the nail. Today I was the nail.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, it happens to all of us, you know? Like,
Yeah.
it's just, it really does. Like, just because you feel, okay, I'm progressing, and especially at white belt, because you do go from our beginner to our intermediate and possibly to our advanced, like, you probably will start getting better in the beginner class and be like, oh, all right, I'm not getting crushed every time.
Yeah.
And then you go to intermediate and you're like, oh, geez,
Yeah.
I'm getting crushed. Then a few months later, all right, now I could go to advanced. Oh, geez, I'm getting crushed again, you know?
Yeah.
It's just part of the process of jiu-jitsu, and especially when you're at a school with, you know, again, I'm biased with all this. We have a lot of really, really good people here, you know? I don't think there's like a week that goes by that if I'm rolling, I don't get tapped out at least once, you know? It happens, you know?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of good people, and you should be thankful that there's a lot of good people that could push you. And it was all top.
Every time.
And push you to that next level, you know? Don't get frustrated with that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Speaking of frustrating, I'm really good with the segues.
I know, you are. You're killing it.
I'm going through my notes in my head. I think one of the most frustrating things as an instructor is having, like, brand new people come in, and, you know, if I show one thing, they're over there with their partner, like, hey, you know, I saw this on YouTube, like, let's do this, or I like to do it this way, and it's like, who are you? Like, we've been doing this a long time, and I don't mean to be, like, a jerk or anything, but think about, like, if I walked into your job that you've been doing for, like, 20, 30 years or whatever, and I'm just like, no, I could do this better. And, like, never having done it before.
Yeah.
It's, like, basically the same thing. Like, if, you know, Frank's been doing this, all three of us have been doing this a long time. If we're out here, like, showing a technique a certain way, it's because we've, like, developed that a certain way to, like, work really well. And we're constantly working on developing stuff. And it's like, if we show it a certain way, try it that way. Work on it. Don't do it once and then move on to your own thing, especially in the beginner class, because, you know, I don't mind, like, white belts helping other white belts do the technique.
Yes.
Like, maybe, you know, there's too few instructors for the class, and, like, you're having a hard time and your partner remembers that little tidbit. Like, yeah, help each other out, but don't go off and, like, do different things and
if I'm showing an armbar from closed guard and you're like, that's cool. Hey, but my partner, I saw north-south choke. Let me try that. There's times and places to work the new things, right? Yeah. And one of those great times is open mat, you know? Open mat isn't necessarily just for sparring. You can practice and try the new techniques.
It's a good time for that.
If you're eligible to take the Wednesday drill class, that's a perfect time to do it. But especially in the beginner class, and who knows, maybe you do have the picture perfect armbar, but that doesn't necessarily mean your partner has it, and you're taking away from their training.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I dislike to see. I don't mind the enthusiasm for the knowledge, because there's I remember it's like everything's like brand new and you're like, ooh, I want to try this, I want to try that. And I'm not trying to inhibit that creativity that comes with learning, but also there's just times and places to practice that. And, you know, the beginner class is.
As a white belt, you have to get these basics, this language we were talking about earlier, like, you have to just get that down. You know, you think of it like so many of the white belts, like, they haven't even had a lot of time with blue belts, let alone purple belts, or some of the brown and black belts here. So, like, the beginner curriculum is to get you, you know, moving and grooving, and without, like, holes in your game that are going to get
you crushed
big,
later on.
exposed later. So, like, you got to focus on this beginner curriculum, you know, and go through the steps. So
it's like like school. Like I don't
Yeah.
go to college and then elementary school. Like you
have to
start off
learn.
slow and then
Yeah.
it builds up, and that's why the curriculum is the way that it is.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, I made a lot of mistakes coming up, learning, and the reason why we created the curriculum the way we did is to help minimize those mistakes.
Yeah, that's why everyone
It's
here
so
is good.
good.
Right?
Yeah, and it
like,
kills
I don't
me.
need this beginner program. I
Because
just want
when
to train
I
with
was
them.
a white belt,
It's like,
I was so bad. I think I was, looking back at it, I was so bad.
Oh, yeah.
Looking at like our current white belts, that was maybe me as like a blue belt.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like our current white belts are really good.
A vast majority of the white belts that are on the mats today would beat me when I was a white belt, and that's 100%
Oh,
oh yeah,
sure.
yeah,
And
yeah.
each generation of white belts, each
Get better and
generation
better.
of blue, purple, brown, black should get better and better,
Yeah,
faster.
definitely.
Faster, yeah.
faster.
For sure.
And you know, I wouldn't say our curriculum is flawless. You know, we do make changes constantly to it. Especially if you've been here for the past 2, 3, 4 years, you'll see like it's growing, the curriculum. I took certain stuff out, put certain stuff in. You know, it's constantly expanding and changing as we as a committee of instructors deem like it's necessary. You know,
Yeah.
we all talk to each other. We all discuss, hey, how did this move go with you when you taught it? Well, people are having, all right, so next time let's emphasize this point or that point.
Yeah.
That sort of stuff. You know.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't have any more segues. So,
I'm trying to think what other topics. Listen to the instructors. They'll give you good guidance a lot of times.
yeah.
You
I
know.
think it's really cool. A lot of our white belts are easily recognizable as like outwardly enthusiastic. Like a lot of
Yeah.
people are really digging it, and then and I get everyone not being like out and bubbly and all that, but you can tell a lot of people are like really into it. You know, very consistent training.
Wanna
You know, really
compete,
working
like
the moves. So I really love seeing white belts that are like enthusiastic, motivated, and like getting a lot out of it. Because we've all gotten so much out of this that when you see that white belt starting to stick, you're like, just stick with it.
yeah.
Yeah.
You have no idea. You have no idea. So, we have a lot of motivated people like that. It's real cool to see.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And I know this week we're just talking about white belts. Like I said, in future weeks we'll talk about higher ranks. Maybe we'll talk about even to like how to get over just a general plateau with your training, because we all get
That's a good
that.
one.
Yeah.
And
That
hopefully,
always happens.
yeah, it does. And hopefully we could start talking about the other programs. I heard there's a guy in this room that does judo. So
There's a guy.
Yeah. Cool.
cool.
Do you guys have anything else?
Keep it up.
Yeah,
Keep it up.
Yeah, good
Keep
stuff.
it up. Ask questions. If you ever want us to expand more upon this, I don't think there's anybody in particular we ever try to single out with any of these videos or anything like this. This is just a general, just helping you guys train while you're off the mats, understanding
Yeah,
our
getting the most
thought
out of it, yeah.
process
Yeah.
and all that sort of stuff.
Learn from
So
our
if you
mistakes.
feel singled out, maybe you're the one. No, I'm just kidding.
No.
Sorry.
But as always, guys, thanks so much for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to ask us.
Thanks.
Okay.
Going back.
Hi.
Going back. Going back.
Keep a lookout for the Scranton MMA blooper reel.